All right, guys, welcome back into another PGA DFS video. My name is Eric Pausing. Going to be getting into the round 2 picks here for the Honda Classic. Going to be doing a recap as well of round 1, and round 1 was pretty crazy. I mean, just going, if this was tomorrow, it would have been an epic cut sweat. So the amount of players like T65 and ties is insane right now. It shifted right at the end of the round, the cut sweat, from the norm of lineups having 6 out of 6, 5 out of 6, 4 out of 6. The norm for that was 3 out of 6 at like 40%. And then it shifted to a bunch of players being the +1 being T65. And now it's like, let me pull it up. It is 12% have 6 for 6 across the cut line. There are a ton of chalky players that are currently +1, which are tied for T65 and ties. And, you know, let's just pull up that screen real quick for you guys. So just looking at it right now. Got Denny McCarthy there. You know, it was a good play. Keith Mitchell, another popular play. Aaron Wise is right there. Cage Lee's right there. Mackenzie Hughes, Joaquin Neiman. There's just a lot of like chalk, but a lot of just cut sweats right on that cut line. And the cut line normally is going to be +3 or like +2, I guess. You can round up to +3. That's kind of the norm at this tournament. So it wouldn't shock me, you know, if it's +2 tomorrow, maybe +3 tomorrow. The interesting thing is that the wind hasn't really been affecting tournaments really at all this season. It's kind of weird. Tournaments are playing a little bit easier, and I think we saw that with some of the golfers going low this morning. Kirk Kitayama freaking stealing the first round leader from Chris Kirk and Daniel Berger. So each week I put up, you know, most likely to have the first round lead. I put up like the top 10 on Twitter, and that's hit like every single week except for 2 weeks ago with KH Lee, who was like top 13 in the player pool that week. But man, kind of crazy. Kirk Kitayama, out of all people, like just a random good round. But yeah, that tool continues to be pretty successful there. Obviously came really close except for one random round. And I'm curious as their thought, what is Kirk Kitayama going to do tomorrow? Like, I could see him playing so poorly that he misses the cut. It'll be interesting to see what he goes out and does tomorrow because, you know, good for him. He's been playing horrible, but we do see these random spike rounds where they go out and have a good round. So, but good for him. But yeah, lots of cut sweats here, guys. I mean, this is going to be crazy. Like I said, prior to pretty much before going live on this video, the norm was 3 out of 6 at about 40%. So really crazy stuff here. Obviously, there's a ton of players tied T65 and ties. I'll pull that up here on the leaderboard. So let's just look at it. I mean, the amount of players T65 and ties is insane. Shanks, Smalley, Chase Koepka, good for him. Denny McCarthy, Hank Lebioda, Harry Higgs. There's like not a lot of chalk here, but there's enough players that were like decently high on there right there. And then we got a lot of golfers at +2. So like I said, I think +2 will end up being the cut line. We'll have to wait and see. It really just depends on how the golfers play. Maybe +3, I doubt it. It most likely won't be +1 though, because typically this tournament does play hard. So lots of interesting stuff there. Just from like the cut sweat side of it, it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be epic. But let's talk about freaking Sungjae Im and Louis Oosthuizen real quick before we really get into the picks. So crazy stuff there. So Sungjae Im, I was on the 9 to 5 Discord chat saying, hey, you know, I think Sungjae Im's gonna be fine. He's gonna birdie this 18th hole and it'll be fine. Gets it to the sand trap in 2. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling pretty good about that. He ends up with a double bogey. I'm like, how is that even possible? Like, that was insane. So he's +4 right now. The good news is, and we'll show you guys round 2 regression and ranking here. So he's actually projected to have a good round 2. Whether that holds up or not, we'll see. You know, he had 2 double bogeys today and was only +4. Take away those, you know, it's a much better round. One of them apparently was on a kind of unlucky bounce. I don't really know. That's what the PGA Tour Live crew was saying. That was kind of an unlucky double bogey on his first double bogey, and then the last one seemed sloppy. And the one thing about Sungjae Im is like when he checks out of a round, it goes bad pretty fast, and it might have been that case with him. And same thing for Matthew Wolff, who's actually I think he's the player that's rated most likely to have a better round. He is. So yeah, Matthew Wolff, he was horrible. And so it's no shock that he's #1 for regression. He's typically a better player than that. It's kind of weird to see him play, though, this week, because this is not a tournament that was good for him. Now, obviously, he's a guy that when he's striping it, and he can go out and have a low round. But all in all, risk reward type play. I do want to talk about Louis Oosthuizen as well, because Louis Oosthuizen was someone that I put up on the 9-5 write up saying, hey, Louis Oosthuizen's in a very weird spot. He doesn't really rank out well in the 9-5 model this week, and that's because of his kind of poor course history. His most recent start was a miscut and then like a 24th place finish. On top of that, he wasn't the best specialist. So kind of in my head, it was like, I kind of feel like Louis Oosthuizen is either going to win this week or he's going to miss the cut. It kind of just felt like it was going to be one of those two extremes. And I'm like, I know this is a hot take because it's Louis Oosthuizen. He's one of the most consistent golfers that just doesn't win. And it was a hot take. But at the same time, it's kind of weird that that might end up being true. And who knows? Who knows? He actually ranks out decently, 4th best in regression rank. So he is most likely to have a better round in round 2, and only 20th in round 2 ranking. So that's not that good. That does mean he's kind of in play. He would have to shoot, what is he, +5 right now? Probably -4 tomorrow, maybe -3 to make the cut, which he easily could do. So if you guys are some of that roster, Louis Oosthuizen, it's not over yet. You could have a good week. And kind of the weird thing this week, it's kind of like last week where some of the value plays, a lot of the value plays are doing really well. It's the other golfers, the high-end golfers like Sanjay and like Louis Oosthuizen, they're kind of the letdown. Daniel Berger obviously had a good round. He was kind of expected to in round 1. So that's good stuff there. But let's get into who are the top picks for round 2. Real quick, I just want to show you guys this tool as well. This is kind of like the live data that I have going on in there for that week. It just tells you kind of the expectations for a player. So one interesting thing, and this kind of sums up the course, I think, a little bit more, is kind of like Billy Horschel is like the most likely to have a stat regression to come back to his mean. Okay, that's what I mean by that. Some people say progression, whatever. He's the most likely to come back to his mean. And the interesting thing about that, that's just because he's been playing in like easier course events where it's easier to hit. I'll show you guys that. Easier to hit the greens, easier to hit the fairways. And so this tournament's a lot harder. And so like, let's just pull up greens and regulation. Let's just do that. So we can see on the season right here, much better for greens and regulation. And on the tournament, not as good. That's kind of just the nature of the beast this week. And that's kind of why he's popping up that much. So, take it with a grain of salt there, but it's still kind of interesting to see that, he might be someone that actually has a better round, even though he did have a pretty good round in round 2. So overall stat regression, just looking at it, Sanjay, no surprise there. He's a guy that kind of struggled today. No surprise to see him number 1 there. And then Billy Horschel, some interesting names there like Nick Taylor, Matthew Wolff. If we take out just the pure stat regression, let's just look at it as a whole. So as a whole, that's what we're looking at. Oostie's expected to play better. Putt improvement rank. Well, that's kind of crazy. Not really expected to improve putting wise. Kind of interesting there. Let's see. Anyone else? Just looking out there. Charles Howell not expected to improve putting wise. I'll show you guys who's most likely to improve putting wise. That's up to you guys if you guys want to look at this stat. I know a lot of people do. I think it's more or less kind of a trap stat. Sometimes it kind of traps people into a thought process for a showdown slate. Whereas if we just continue to look at overall stat regression, like who's most likely to have a better round in general, because golf is a, tee to green and then green game. Okay. You need to have all those assets of your game going. And that's why I like to look at the full picture instead of just one stat. If a guy is elite in ball striking one day, which is more than his norm, I want to know that. If a guy is, putting lights out and typically doesn't, I want to know that, but I want to know it all together. I don't want to just cherry pick a stat. This is kind of cherry picking a stat, but Billy Horschel, Matthew Wolff, Matt Jones, Nate Lashley, Aaron Wise, and this is putts per round. Or putts per green. That's what we're looking at. Just want to look at raw, like golf abilities. I want to look at just accuracy and then at the green. That's what this is telling us. Because we already have the pure stat regression right here. Like this just tells us, hey, these golfers sucked as compared to the expectations, and they're much likely to play better. And so just going over again, Matthew Wolff, Sanjay, Satoshi Kodaira had a horrible round. Oosthuizen, Zach Johnson, Matt Jones, Aaron Wise, Brennan Todd, Keith Mitchell, Hudson Swafford, Michael Thompson. Okay, so there we go. We got that down. Let's just look at round 2 rank here. So who are the top golfers for round 2? Kind of interesting here. Joaquin Niemann. And I think that's because I think his round 2 scoring is just being pulled into this the most. But he's a pretty good golfer as a whole. Let's see here. Yeah, just expected to play well. He's actually expected to have a little bit of regression as well. So top 16 there, a decent pick as a whole for round 2 showdown. I don't know if we really have to attack a tee time advantage because, like I said, there's not really a wind this week. It's still so strange that the wind hasn't been a factor for these tournaments because they're all playing easier because the wind just hasn't been a huge factor. And even this tournament where, yes, the crosswinds can affect it a little bit more at 10 mile per hour than typical tournaments, it really didn't too much, which is kind of crazy. So weird, just a weird thing going on. I just have to echo that. I can't believe how much the weather isn't affecting tournaments. It's just kind of crazy. But that being said, let's get into it a little bit more. Keith Mitchell. Keith Mitchell is interesting because he had a good round going, then struggled, hit a couple balls in the water, bounced back a little bit. Just kind of an interesting round. But yeah, he ranks out second best, round 2 ranking. Then Sanjay and Mackenzie Hughes. Michael Thompson, that's interesting. Charles Howell's another interesting one to me. It actually makes sense, though, because if you just look at it round by round, kind of struggling a little bit in round 1, and then he's just been going off on round 2s, especially in his last tournament. And that might be skewing the data a little bit because he went really low in his last tournament after a horrible round 1. He didn't really have the best round 1 this time, so makes sense. Aaron Wise, Denny McCarthy. Denny McCarthy is interesting because he kind of had a good round, kind of didn't. He's right on the cut line. I really need Denny to step up and make the cut, as well as Sanjay, as well as Brian Harmon. There's a lot of cut sweats, guys. This is kind of like last week where you go either way. You know, if we get some of these good golfers to make the cut, it's going to be a really solid week. If some of them miss the cut, probably won't be. But it's just an interesting week. Billy Horschel needs to go low. And that brings me into, hey, who is most likely to win? Let's look at win rank, and then we'll just go into the outright betting thing as well. So golfers that aren't currently projected to make the cut, they're not going to be on there. So win rank. I think everyone's finished, so this is going to be completely full, the full data. Once again, this data updates after everyone's completed the round. That's when it's going to be the most accurate. So here we go. Daniel Berger, most likely to win. No shock there. He's in second place. Top golfer in the field, top rated in the model. The only worry about him was going to be his back. Doesn't seem to be an issue. So that makes sense. And then Chris Kirk, top 9 for that first round leader. I'm bitter about that. I wanted that. He had 7 birdies too, 2 bogeys. So, oh well there. But second most likely to win. That's a little bit interesting to me there. Billy Horschel, Aaron Rye, Cameron Young, Mito. Interesting stuff there. Lucas Glover casually popping up there. Kurt Kitayama, that's not too bad. Top 15. I think that's going to be lower. So these outright odds that I'm about to get into, these update typically in the morning. And that's why there's like some random ones like this, like it updates in the morning, as it says right there. So not exactly going to be true. No real reason to look at this. I would love to be able to see like the percent odds to win because this is still based off of like prior to the start for the most part. So just kind of interesting to look at. Billy Horschel, just no real reason to look at this just yet because it updates in the morning. Let's see if there are any matchup bets though, possibly. Let's see here. I don't really believe that one, although you could go with it. The matchup bets I typically like to use for round 3 and round 4 for the most part. But Charles Howell, that's kind of interesting because we saw him pop up for round 2 showdown rank. Let's see if I can, let me try something here. I can't. I might add a filter to this where you can filter based off of their round 2 ranking or based off of their round ranking. So you can sort top 10 in round 2 rank, and then you could look at who has the best matchups, group matchups. That'd be interesting there, I think. That's all I have for you guys, really. Oh, I want to show you guys one more thing. So we're going to run a build here. And I don't know if you guys can see this. I don't think so. But I'm going to run a build on the 9 to 5 lineup optimizer here. And then hopefully I can show it to you guys. Not that. No, that's not what I want. It's not showing it to you guys. I'm sorry. The build would be Aaron Wise, Alex Norn, Denny McCarthy, Keith Mitchell, Mackenzie Hughes, and Michael Thompson. That'd be the optimal build for round 2. And then just looking at like pure, who are the best values? Like if you're doing projection divided by salary or whatever, that value. Best value is actually looking like Michael Thompson, Charles Howell, Denny McCarthy, Mackenzie Hughes, Russell Knox, Taylor Moore, Dirt McGirt. That's interesting. Don't play him. Don't play him, but that's kind of interesting there. Taylor Pendrith, Lucas Glover, Camilo Villegas. So just some names there to look for. If you want to look at it in that sense, you can. But yeah, you guys can feel free to sign up and use this lineup tool. That's kind of what I've been doing, and that's kind of how I've had success on the Showdown slates. Just max exposure to a 40%, and then we're good to go. Run that optimizer for about 20 lineups or whatever you want, and it's been pretty good. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. It's going to be a cut sweat. It definitely is going to be a cut sweat. It does look like Louis Oosthuizen and Sungjae Im could possibly make the cut. We'll see. It's going to be crazy. It really is going to be crazy because like I said earlier, the shift from like 3 out of 6 being the norm to I think it's like 5 out of 6 being the norm right now. That was insane. There's a lot of chalk and a lot of just high-owned golfers that are right on that cut line or near that cut line. So it's going to be an interesting round 2. Really, just got to cross your fingers and hope your golfer doesn't kind of shoot themselves in the foot. So let's have a good round 2 Showdown. Let's have a good round 2 in general. Hopefully you guys have 6 for 6 across the cut line. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a like and subscribe. And as always, let's keep cashing.